about half of autistic people also have an associated intellectual or learning disability. It makes sense, therefore, to think about autism in a broader context than just the diagnostic criteria. Some people with autism can be very able and have excellent language skills and thinking and reasoning capabilities, but no two people with autism are identical. And some people with autism can also be non-verbal and have mild, moderate or severe difficulties with learning. Most research has taken place with autistic adults and children who are able to talk, and relatively little is known about children and adults with autism and intellectual disability. Often people can assume that the research findings from highly able people with autism will extend to autistic people who also have an intellectual disability, but we do not know that this is the case. A recent study explored when children with intellectual disability, with or without autism, started to walk. And starting to walk later is thought to predict more difficulties in later life for those children. Interestingly, those with autism spectrum disorder and intellectual disability started to walk earlier than those with just intellectual disability. Thus, autism may in some way be protective against some of the effects of the intellectual disability. But future research will follow this up to find out. Autism is argued to be at the extreme end of a continuum that we are all on somewhere. Some researchers have suggested that autistic traits stretch across the population. Some people have low levels of autistic traits, and some people have higher levels of autistic traits. And autistic people have very high levels of autistic traits. Typically, levels of autistic traits are measured by self-report questionnaires, such as Baron-Cohen's Autism Spectrum questionnaire, or the Autism Quotient. Crucially, the Autism Quotient is not diagnostic, so getting a high score does not necessarily mean you are autistic, but might indicate further investigation is warranted. It has been suggested that parents of autistic children are likely to have higher levels of autistic traits and to have strengths in systematic thinking and attention to detail. Intelligence is also argued to stretch across the population and is typically measured through IQ tests. Again, some people have higher levels of intelligence and some people have lower levels of intelligence. Low IQ scores of 70 or below are often used to identify intellectual disability. Parents of children with autism and intellectual disability may tend to have higher autistic traits, though they do not tend to have lower levels of intelligence.